Hey there and welcome to the Virtual Cafe Studio for coffee combos about business finances. I'm your host Kerry Zarb and I am the Money Barista. Together with Kim White, we bring you the casual feel of topics about finances every week. Step inside the Virtual Cafe and discover how simple your business finances can be. What are we waiting for? Come on, let's go. It's coffee time. Hey Kim, welcome back to the Virtual Cafe.
Hey Carrie, I'm so excited to be here today in the house of the Money Barista.
Me too, Kim. It's exciting, new show. Well, not new show, new title, and everything's been happening.
So let me just give a little tiny bit of backstory, Carrie, because this has been a super big time in your life, super big time of all the things going on. You have done a lot of, call it rebranding, but honestly, there's a whole lot of just clarity going on, Carrie. That's really what it is. And I want to ask you a question. Can we just go right in? I have a coffee with oat milk and ginger as usual, and you have your coffee latte, and I'm so excited about this. Can we just start talking about what we were going to talk about?
Sure, let's go.
I'm coming in hot, y'all. So, Carrie, I want to go back to the beginning of this podcast. I want to go back to the very beginning and you share the story and kind of the timeline, because I think this is an incredible example for everybody who is listening. Would really love to hear where it all started.
Sure, let's do it. Okay, so Kerry was born in 1977. Fast forward a few years, just a few. Started podcasting in, let me get the number right, 2018. However, it was horrible. I hated the sound of my voice. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't even know how to podcast, full stop. And out there in the universe somewhere in the archives is evidence of such things. And I think I may have produced perhaps 3 episodes that just made me cringe from top to bottom. And I actually found myself coming up with all these excuses, I want to call them, as to why I shouldn't be doing this. And my best excuse at the time was that I was too busy. And not that I wasn't busy, but I used that as my little comfort crutch of, it's not the right time, I can't do this. But reality was, I hated it. I did not like it at all, especially the sound of my voice. So fast forward to the great freeze of 2020, and it was April of 2020. So after lockdowns here came into place and everything stopped, overnight, like many others, my business dropped by 80% in a matter of 2 weeks. And there was fear, anxiety, uncertainty. No one knew what was going to happen. We had no idea how long we were going to be in a lockdown. We had no idea how long this pandemic was going to last. It almost became life renormalized at that time to this bad epic of what's going to happen. Nobody knew. Nobody had a crystal ball.
Hey, can I interrupt you for a second? Because I want to ask a really quick question. Since this podcast is all about money, I'd like to just ask you this question, because you're talking about 80% of your business being gone in 2 weeks. That's drastic money difference. And when we're telling this story of the podcast, I want to make sure everybody understands, this is still all tied to money, but this is where you came from, which I think is amazing. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's tap into that a tiny bit more, Kim, because I think this was not uncommon. Some people lost 100%. Some people were just flat out, everything stopped. There was nothing at all. So I felt quite fortunate. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I felt really fortunate that I still had 20%. And I think those that had, 10, 20, 30 were also grateful. And the world turned grateful for what little we did have. But that looming uncertainty, how do you know if you're going to be able to afford to pay your bills? Can you turn your light on? Is that okay? Like, you would literally almost reach for the light switch and go, oh, should I? Do I run the heater in my office? And at that time here, it was the end of summer, so heaters weren't a big thing, but how much should I run the air conditioning to be comfortable in the home office? All those little things were coming into play in everyone's minds. And at that time, again, I did feel fortunate to have some business. But Kim, I got bored. I got really bored, but concerned, and concerned for others. That was my biggest thing, because again, I felt so fortunate to have some business and a view of, I guess I was hoping that things would recover and things would get better, and I'm quite a positive person, so I had to lean into that mentality. But a lot of people didn't have that. They had complete uncertainty, and I recall having so much time on my hands that I just felt like something needed to be done, something needed to happen, and how can I help? What can I do? How can I support others? I didn't have the finances to support others as much as I would like to. However, what else can I do? So you start to kind of look at your landscape and go, okay, well, I'm a bit active on Facebook or other social media platforms. Surely there's more. Surely there's more I can do. And it might have come back into Kerry's little pea brain that she had attempted to podcast at one stage, epically failed, and now I've got the time to learn and maybe give it another shot. However, with the intention to support others. It wasn't about me. It wasn't anything particularly for me other than something to do with my time. But I just wanted to build a podcast that people could tune into and get some advice, get some experience from other people that I could connect with and have conversations with, and bring some expertise to the table to help them, so that hopefully there was another little resource out there for people to tap into. So, Kim, that was very long-winded and I apologise, but that's what happened.
So, Terry, this makes me really excited that you're willing to share this, though, because you don't share this part very often. And that is you really are mission driven. You really serve other people with your heart. And I know that somebody who's tough and uses those big F words, I know this is not the usual that you want to share, but I am grateful to know the backstory. I am grateful to know that your kindness, like during something so scary for so many people, you literally were sharing what you had and you were sharing connections you had. So will you take us to that beginning part of the podcast and like where this was? Because I think this is an incredible story for people to see you go through and be willing to share.
Well, Kim, it's quite interesting that we're talking about this now after the rebrand to the Money Barista, because it actually had its own little rebrand as well. I had a Facebook group for small business owners at the time, and when I brought in the podcast into my world to share with others, that support group got a new name, the podcast got a new name, and it's actually quite weird to think back that I went through that in a very small way compared to what has just transpired, but that was bring them together. Use the Facebook group to self-advertise the podcast to bring that resource. And I had a really good community on the Facebook group, and it actually got in front of a lot of people and got shared to a lot of people, but that also encouraged new guests to come to the show because I was making new relationships from the Facebook group coming over to the podcast, and then I was really able to tap into some fantastic guests to come across the show and share their wisdom to others for the same mission and purpose that I was on as well. So that beginning was quite magical. And I was still working everything out. There was a few solo episodes at the beginning just to get my feet wet and start to play in this space. And once I hit the guest series, which was only maybe 6 or 7 episodes in, it just felt like everything opened and started to work in the direction that I wanted. And it felt good. I was giving for no reason. There was no ulterior motive. There was no purpose behind it. Business-wise for me, I had accepted my 80% drop and I wasn't looking to replace that because I had hope that over time that would recover with the business that I do. However, this was just purely the resource to put out for others in conjunction with the Facebook group at the time.
Oh my goodness, Carrie, you're such a giver. Let me just say that out loud. Not only do you help everybody get in control of their finances, which is a phrase you use, but you also were helping them during a really hard time be able to have hope that they ever could recover. What happened after you were podcasting for a little while and having guests? I know you had lots of guests because I listened to all the episodes just so everybody knows.
Well, Kim, it was quite interesting because I think and I don't want to say that the pandemic didn't stop. It wasn't just suddenly like how it didn't stop us as quickly as it started. And here in Australia, we were in multiple lockdowns longer than other places on the globe. Like it was beyond comprehension. So every time a lockdown came in, because we'd have a couple of weeks of kind of freedom and then we'd be, sent home again. And with that continuing to roll forward, it prolonged the pain for businesses on this side. And one of the things that came to me in a moment of coffee or something was, well, hang on a minute, the guests were fantastic, the information shared was phenomenal, however, I had more to share. And I had the opportunity to tap into myself to share me and my experience, which I hadn't done. I was just getting comfortable by having guests and actually being at a microphone to the point where I went, oh, hang on a minute, maybe there's kind of something I've got to share. And I started to gain a little bit more confidence in doing that and being able to flip the podcast into less interview style and more solo episodes and started moving towards the business finances in that recovery mode because we were just starting to ease out of the pandemic, and finances are important when you're recovering your business. I was going through it as well, and I knew others were. And feedback that I'd received from the podcast in general was that people were trying to work out, how do I forecast now? My numbers look so different. What's going to happen? How do I set a budget? All those kind of things were bubbling to the surface. So I had to tap in, and with that, I did still continue with the Biz Nation brand into finances until I flipped it over to Simply Biz Beans, which became the headline and matching point of just talking about business finances.
And just to make sure everybody's following Carrie, it's the same podcast we're on right now. It's a matter of this is the evolution, really, of it. And of you, because I have watched you grow incredibly. You're a rock star podcaster. And I know you fuss at me for saying that all the time, but it's the truth. And I love that you share where you came from, because we all have struggles. And you are just so open. I appreciate that, Carrie. So you've rebranded to Simply Biz Beans. You're doing the podcast. And then I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, Carrie Zarb. And I'm going to say, look at you marrying coffee, which has been there the whole time, and marrying money, because both of those you talk about all the time as beans. Like that is a Carrie Zarb thing.
It is. And Kim, I kind of want to add at this point as well, and I know you're not going to like this, but I feel one of the major turning points was when you joined me in this show. Don't look at me like that, guys. You should see your face. When you joined me in the show, this was January this year that we kicked off doing it together, co-hosting. I feel like that was significant as well. We'd rebranded to Simply Biz Beans, then you came in to co-host with me, and having these conversations, it's different when you talk to someone else. Solo podcasts were very hard. They were hard work because I got all this stuff in my head. No one's got a crowbar to kind of put it out of me. Kim has a crowbar, hence why she joined in January. But doing that alone was really tough going. And I had advice left, right and centre, Kim, of people saying, oh, if you're going to change the name of your show, you should stop this one and start another one. Other people were saying, maybe keep your existing audience, but explain to them what's happening and why the change and be open about it. I chose that path because I wanted to continue to help this audience, those that are tuning in, hello to you right now. And at the same time, having that transition through with the name changes, the purpose, and the purpose change never really changed, Kim. It was always to help others. The topics may have changed, interviews might have been dropped off and conversations came in, but it was always for that one end result of helping the person that's tuning in so that they can actually get benefit out of these conversations. So Kim, I want to thank you for joining me and hanging out in the virtual cafe as always, because that was a huge shift for me personally.
Sorry, I'm taking my coffee and leaving town because that wasn't supposed to be about me at all. That's you. So I just have to say out loud though, thank you for sharing this story of how we got here, because the Money Barista is a big deal. I hope everybody recognizes that. I hope they recognize that you're a big deal and you are helping so many people. I can't even believe how much you have helped people with the Money Barista savings tool that you just had the live tour about last week. You have a new total for everybody. Do you dare share it today, Carrie, or are you sharing it next week?
I think we will share it right now, Kim, because it is exciting, and the new total saved from the Money Barista savings tool that was formerly known as Simple Subscriptions is $116,000.64.
Blows my mind, Carrie Zarb. That's just a little over a year that our community, those are just the ones you know, Carrie.
That's right. Not everybody reports and tells me, and they don't have to. I'm cool with that. But the people that have told me, that's what we're up to. And it's insane to think that happened so quickly. So super excited to announce that, Kim. And you know what? We need to get out of here. We need to grab some takeaways and head out of the virtual cafe. So we're super excited that you were able to tune in today, and we will chat to you next week. Bye, Kim.
Bye, Carrie.
Thank you for joining us in the Virtual Cafe studio for this convo about business finances. This production is brought to you by the Money Barista, Carrie Zarb. You can follow the show to be notified of future episodes, and if you're enjoying this podcast, we encourage you to leave a rating or personal review. Until next time, happy biz beans to you. No beans were harmed during the production of this podcast. Information contained in this podcast should be taken as general advice only, and your personal circumstances have not been taken into account. It is recommended that you seek financial advice from a professional who is licensed to do so. If you choose to act upon the general advice shared, you do so at your own risk.